I'm retiring the egg timer. She failed again tonight, so bye-bye, baby. Okay. I do want to say, once again, that our panelists have done a wonderful job. We've heard a lot of diverse opinion tonight so far, and I'd like to take this moment to ask you to join me in thanking them with a big round of applause. We have about 20 or 25 minutes for some questions and answers, and I think the question that seems to be most common right now has to do with the idea of evolution, physical evolution, and I think I'll just read this one question, but it has to do with what each faith believes is the role of evolution in your theology. Mel, so your theology, no, excuse me. We're going to start with Jim. How does your faith address extinct human species such as somebody or other, Homo erectus, Homo neandros, somebody knows more than most of us about these names. Were these creatures humans with souls? So that's a potent question about the predecessors of what we know as humankind, but in general, both those people who are considered our most closely associated cousins, and the general idea of evolution. Jim? And we'd ask our panelists to stand for just a moment while you're responding, and just take about 1 minute per question.
1 minute?
1 minute, yes.
1 minute, Paul?
Yes.
1 minute? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, 1 minute. Certainly the Anglican Church accepts evolution. And other religions also have accepted evolution. The Roman Catholic Church very recently accepted evolution. So I'm not in a tradition that denies the notion of evolution. And if there is evolution, then we don't know that we're the end of evolution, but maybe just a stage in evolution. I went to Claremont for my doctorate degree, and at Claremont, what's big there is called process theology. And this is the notion that, and evolution is part of the process of reality. It's by Alfred North Whitehead, who very much trying to give a religious and metaphysical view based on the science of his own age. And evolution was a big part of that. So for him, and I think this is close to Hegel too, evolution is attempting to bring to the level a pure spirit, what Hegel called the world spirit, the spirit of everything. So I'm not sure I've answered all of the question, but I certainly don't deny evolution, and the fact that I don't have to identify with other species that are part of the chain that brought me about as a human being, any more than if I as a human being aren't the last in the evolutionary chain, will be able to identify with me either.
Thank you. Teji, a minute, please, and then yeah, just proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. I talked about evolution last year in the Interfaith Forum. Sikhism believe in the story of Genesis about Adam and Eve. We have no idea where we came from. We have no answers to that. One day we may find the answer. So for me, evolution is our inner growth. How we treat the fellow person. How we treat other people. how we breed goodness within so we can share with others. This is the only evolution I know. I do not know, and I do not want to get into the division between a creation and an evolution. Those are dogmatic things which I am not in. Thank you.
Thank you. Now?
Like Teji, I am in. As a humanist, we definitely believe that evolution is a fact. In fact, if I might use the expression, Charles Darwin was a patron saint of evolution, of humanists. Humanists believe that evolution of every species is just changing the species to enable them to survive better, enabling them to reproduce better. Each species has their own different functions for reproducing, different functions for surviving, and we constantly change. We adapt to the circumstances. Evolution is a biological fact, and I will argue that with anybody that there is no debate. As far as humanists are concerned, we might accept other things that religionists believe in, but evolution it's a biological fact. Any scientist, or I'd say 99% of scientists, you have that 1% who identify as creationists, but 99% of biologists, of scientists, will acknowledge that evolution is definitely not a controversial issue. It's not even a discussable issue. It's just a fact that we should be teaching in every school and not put it on the same level as creationism. The problem is, I hear people say, well, if you teach evolution, you should teach creationism, and the big problem in that is you're putting them both on the same plane. And there's nothing more ludicrous than that. I'm sorry if I insulted anybody's beliefs.
Thank you. We're going to wait for the applause for everybody, one more round of it. So thank you for abstaining.
Thanks. I would say, first of all, thank you for the question. The church would be the first, the LDS Church would be the first to say that we do not know the truth of all things. There's a lot of science discoveries out there to be had, and that we will circumscribe all truth into one great whole when we know all things. The church does believe that Adam and Eve were created by God in the Garden of Eden, and that we are all descended from them. I think the only evolution that the LDS Church might describe in their philosophies and teachings is that of our evolution as we move through that plan of salvation that I spoke about earlier, as we become physical beings, and then as we move on to have those other experiences after this life as well, that through that course of progression that we do evolve. But in terms of the Neanderthal question, we believe that we are descended from Adam and Eve, who were created by God. So, thank you.
So I have to give a slight underlying premise. One of the fundamental teachings of the Baha'i faith is that science and religion must be in harmony. It is one of the fundamental first tenets. So to that end, do Baha'is believe that we are evolved from different species or whatever? Physically, yeah, sure, fine. That's completely okay. But I think the distinctive characteristics between what Baha'is believe is the difference between animals and humans, which I think is where, if you go back far enough, that's where the evolution argument goes, is that the difference between humans and animals is the presence of a soul. So that regardless of what we look like on the outside or looked like evolutionarily speaking, the existence of the soul is what made us human. So as long as there has been God, there has been man, and as long as there has been man, there has been God. So the existence of a soul is what matters, and that has not changed. But physically speaking, the Baha'i faith does believe in evolution, if you want to frame it that way.
Thank you. Aslam.
if we close our eyes during a sun shining day, we will not deny the existence of sun. Probably we will be called blind. Evolution is the essence of existence. And much before Darwin said that, Ibn Maskawiyya, who is a 9th century Muslim scholar, he studied it, he presented it, and he basically concluded based on his understanding of the biblical and the Quranic understanding that evolution is the process of existence. And if I could summarize the argument of Islam and Muslims, is that the God who is capable of creating Adam and Eve from nowhere is also capable of creating a process of evolution. So the God who we basically try to interpret in our own image and try to impose our words and understanding because of our ignorance to him, because of our apathy and indifference to the science, we are in fact challenging God and challenging the divine, because science is the manifestation of God. Science is what God created. We did not create that. The process of evolution is thus a creation on the part of God. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next question will begin with a round of individual questions, and this one, first of all, will go to Teji. What does the Sikh tradition say it is about human nature, or the nature of religion, that contributes to religious fanaticism?
Could you say that again? I didn't get it properly.
Okay, the essence is, what is it about human nature, or the nature of religion, that contributes to religious fanaticism?
Well, as I mentioned, that Sikh is not a religion, but all fanaticism somehow or the other, whether it's the TV show or anything else, or the color of a dress or a turban or a shirt. So we do have the fanatic feelings of different things. But when we talk about creating harmony, then we throw this fanaticism away from it. How can we have harmony and talk about oneness and all when you say, no, you're wrong. Your way is wrong. You're digging a pit for you. Come to my comfortable chair. That's not the way it happens. So fanaticism in any kind, either in the name of religion or in the name of personal belief. Michael Page, the killer, the murderer in Wisconsin, Oak Street, Gurdwara, he was a white supremacist. We don't know what he believed in or not believed in. But normally, white supremacists are Christians. I hope I'm wrong. So fanaticism in anything is ill will. That's why I never tell my wife I'm fanatic about you. I always tell her, I am here, the only handbag you've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Mel, thank you, Teji. What, if any, are the consequences of an evil act?
The laws, for one thing. If,
I don't know if anybody, if they...
hello, can you hear me? Okay. Consequences of an evil act are, first, legal punishment. Now, the only consequence of you say an immoral act or
Evil.
the only consequences of an evil act, if they were to be punished in an afterlife, why would we need laws? Unless the laws only apply to us atheists. But we need laws because people generally, good people will be good and bad people will be bad, and the consequences are whatever the law provides. And there really is no further answer that I, as a humanist, can state. I don't believe in an afterlife, so there won't be any punishment for me, but I'll be good because I'm a good person, or I'll be bad because I'm a bad person.
Thank you. I'm glad you're a good guy. Ruth, what about children in horrible conditions, like poverty, abuse, starvation, disease, horrible parents? Did they choose that experience?
Thank you. Wow. The LDS Church doesn't believe that we are foreordained to a condition when we come to this world. I would say that God respects the gift of free agency that He's given us. And when we choose to exercise that in such a way that we hurt other people, that we do things that we know are wrong, that we cripple our society by doing things in such a way that we encourage other people to do things that aren't good for society and that aren't not good for our family. When we choose to use our free agency in such a fashion that God respects the fact that He gave us that gift, and if we choose to make bad choices, we also choose the consequences that come with those. And that is how we get the results sometimes of children and widows and people who should not suffer, should not be made to suffer, and should not have to endure suffering because of the choices and the consequences of those choices of the people in their lives.
Thank you. Elham, what would the Baha'i faith say is the difference between religion and spirituality?
Oh yeah, no big deal, easy question. Well, I don't know. I think that in the Baha'i perspective, there is no difference and there is a difference at the same time. So religion encompasses spirituality, but the thing that Baha'is believe has changed through the progression of time and through the coming of these different religions is really the social teachings. So the spiritual teachings haven't changed, the underlying, I guess, moral things that Mel was talking about earlier, those similar things. But spirituality, you don't necessarily need to have religion to have spirituality. Spirituality is your connection with God, and religion would I guess encompass the social teachings that you would express your faith through. And I hope that that's answered the question, but that's a really difficult question. Good job, whoever wrote that question.
Thank you, Elham. I've never seen Elham stumped, so that was really good. But that was a nice answer, thank you. Aslam, is there any reference in the Quran that justifies using violence or war?
No. The simple answer is there is no such justification for violence in the name of God.
Or war.
Or war.
Thank you. Maybe because this question is one that's perhaps, is there any way you can expand on maybe why people are thinking that's the case? Since that is a question that I think is in the public arena, maybe you could expand on that just a little.
I think this brings us to a broader issue. And the broader issue is that religion has always been a source of conflict, corruption, and violence in our human history. God is not. What has happened is that human beings have hijacked God and molded Him in their image. Throughout human history, this has happened regardless whether the people belong to Islam, Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, or whatever religion you want to name. They have tried to justify their violence, their domination, and their control over the other and the basis. In the history of our country, we see the same thing happening to Mormons, we see the same thing happening to Jews, we see the same thing happening to Catholics, all in the name of religion. God is the God who is a source of mercy to all human beings, because all of us are created by Him. And anyone who basically defies God defies the human dignity and defies the universe. It is from that perspective that we have to look at the religion. So the religion does not make any sense to me, to be honest with you. It is all man-made. God makes sense to me. And how do I understand God? I understand God when I show my dignity to the fellow human beings, and I show respect to each and every human being and everything that is in existence in this universe. That's what it makes sense to me. It does not mean that I should be respectful only to those who belong to my kind. No, it means that I should be respectful to each and everything, even the trees and the universe, and everything that in existence.
Thank you very much. Jim, you mentioned 500 BC, and this person has asked, what do you think happened in 500 BC to cause this emergence of religious thought?
I want to answer the question about spirituality and religion.
You go, boy.
Good job. Good job.
I don't know of anybody who tries to explain why we have this unique period in history of independent cultures coming up with extremely new and interesting ideas, and why that happened. I mean, there's always these unique things that happen in history. It's just an incredible, interesting phenomenon. Let me answer the other question, okay?
Hey, okay, you get the last word. It's your place.
I mean, I think what's going on in today's society is an attempt to drive a wedge between spirituality and religion. As Ellen said, spirituality is part of religion. So the question is, why do some people want to drive a wedge between the two and say, well, I'm spiritual but not religious? And I've asked my students that question. And their answer is this: all of them have had a negative experience with organized religion. They've been hurt by it, and it's driven them away from organized religion, but not from its spiritual element.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that was the last word. At this time, one last round of applause for our wonderful